So welcome to day 32 of Project 41, and I have something very special today. A friend of mine that I have made over the course of this past probably 6 months to a year, who doesn't live anywhere near me, but we have lots of things in common about our stories, how they started, and we're going to have a little interview here with none other than, excuse me, Francisco Alvarez. So Francis lives in Puerto Rico, and he stumbled across my profile. So I'm going to bring him in, and we're going to talk about all kinds of things that are about this vegan movement, about our journeys, and we would like to invite you to come along with us. I'm going to send him an invite to bring him in. What is happening, my friend?
Hey, what's going on, Chris? How are you doing?
Man, we've been really busy, but doing really well. We're finishing up my wife's grandparents' house. After they passed away, they had left it to one of their sons, who unfortunately passed away in February, and he left it to my wife's brother. And so this house needed some serious updates. So we've gutted almost the entire house, new electric, new plumbing, new HVAC, paint, new bathrooms, new kitchen. Like, we've been very busy, but it's awesome and rewarding for my wife and her family to be able to do this and keep this house in the family, which is very important. So we've been busy, but you know, who's not busy, right?
Yeah. I see you. You're sort of like in a garage environment. I'm kind of digging that. I wish I had one, but instead I have a not too shabby home studio where I could interact with you. So I do appreciate your time. Thank you for doing this. I know we've been meaning to do this for quite some time. I see you're all bundled in, nestled in. I can't imagine it's anywhere near 85 degrees in Ohio right now.
No, actually, today was pretty nice. It was 50. So for late November, mid-November, I'll take 50 degrees. But tonight it's going to get down in the 20s again, so definitely not 85, and enjoy.
Yeah. You know, I lived in Atlanta and South Florida, which kind of dips sometimes. So I've experienced harsh winters. I don't miss them terribly. I would prefer my winters to be maybe 75 degrees, which is probably what's happening outside my window right now. But yeah, man, I'm beyond ecstatic to do this with you, and barter and banter, I should say, back and forth as far as each other's stories. As you previously mentioned in the beginning of this video, I came across your profile because I saw one of your videos that was doing quite well. I must say you're very eloquent. You're very well-spoken when you're getting your thoughts across. That's what kind of resonated with me. So, kudos to you on that. And so I kind of wanted to do this because I was so moved by your story. I've known of people who were actual former butchers who are now vegans, and so that's something that's definitely hit home with me. And namely, specifically in your case, you were a former avid hunter and deer and game hunter, and so that struck me as quite the feat for you to go from one spectrum to the other. So from everyone watching, your followers and mine, I congratulate you, because it takes a real man, right, to do what you've done, and the example that you've set forth for everybody that's on our respective platforms. So I do congratulate you on that. And so I want to get into the nitty gritty, if you will.
Sure.
Like I said, off camera, I put together a couple of questions of intriguing, intellectual questions to get us going here. First off, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So the first question I'd like to ask you, Chris, is about that epiphany, right? That aha moment that we have a higher calling, and, something that snaps within us, that cognitive dissonance, that we actually listen to it as opposed to ignore it, Tell me a little bit about that aha moment that you had, that light bulb that went off in your head. If you can recall it, if you're willing to share it with us, an anecdote, if you will.
I remember this moment as if it was yesterday. I can tell you the people that were there and what it was that changed my life. So our journey started because my wife had fallen in love with a cow. She kept watching videos of this cow online, and she just, loved seeing the pictures and videos and the things he would do. And then she felt like a hypocrite because she loved this cow, but she's feeding this cow to our family. And so finally, one day at work, she called me and said, I'm done eating meat. I love you. Click. She hung up on me. And at that point, I had to make a decision. We had multiple arguments about hunting. I would defend my family and hunters, that what they were doing was acceptable and okay. And, she's never been okay with that. But she was being a hypocrite, still putting animals on our table to eat. So after that choice, I decided that I was going to support her at home, but I was not on board. I was not interested. I wasn't listening. And it really wasn't for me. Eating at home was okay, but if I went out with my friends, I was still eating hamburgers and steaks and chicken wings and whatever else I wanted to eat. What changed my perspective was actually going to an animal sanctuary. We went to go meet this cow for our wedding anniversary. I planned a surprise trip because I thought, I'll play the good husband. I'll be supportive. I'll do these things that would make her happy. We'll go meet this cow since she cares so much about him. And, in a few months, in a few weeks, things will go back to normal. Little did I know that that was going to change my life forever. This cow is very special in that he only has technically 3.5 legs. He has a prosthetic hoof that he was fitted with. And he is just a big, old, goofy puppy. And the moment I met him, the moment I put my hands on him, I made that connection that he is a living, breathing soul, just like my dog, just like anyone else's dog. And at that moment, I said, I get it. I get it, and I'm in. And from there, we started our journey together. So she was a few months ahead of me on her choice. And without a doubt, making that connection with him is what sparked all of this in me. And, without a doubt, that day will be a day I'll never forget.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty impactful to hear, that the mere act of just putting your hands and petting a cow literally struck a nerve inside of you, rewired your thinking. I guess it was that impactful for you, and I completely get it. I understand it. Admittedly, there's a lot of cows here on the island. We are pretty well versed when it comes to dairy. Unfortunately, I have to admit that on camera.
Sure.
So there are plenty of cows roaming the island, and everywhere you go, it's like that meme of a cat just staring out the window. Hey, look at a cow, Yeah. So I completely get it. Contrary to, I guess, what happened to you, I had been on the record many times as saying that I actually went vegan for my health first.
Sure.
I admittedly, I was paralyzed from the neck down for 4 months, and I had to make changes, or else I would be risking my own life. And so I've been on the record as saying that. I don't think I ever have to apologize to say that, because self-preservation will forever be number one priority for you. But much like yourself, I switched gears when it came to being more of an ethical vegan. At first I called myself an egotistical vegan because I did it for my own personal health reasons. And I've since then acquired the ethical vegan lifestyle, in the sense that I, much like you, put animals and living, sentient, breathing creatures ahead of pretty much everything else. My argument to do that, much like yours, is the fact that it doesn't really matter to me anymore of why you go vegan, as long as you go vegan.
Yes.
Like it's that perfect triangle. If you're vegan for your health, the animals will in fact be taken care of, as well as the planet. If you're more of an environmental vegan, you obviously refrain from eating animals, and therefore your health also improves. So it really doesn't matter what stance. And, you and I should not ever, anyone in this community for that matter, should never ever judge anyone regardless of the reasons as to why they went vegan, as long as they actually do go vegan. Not that there were any, were judgmental in any which way. I don't think we ever should be. We'd be hypocritical in that sense as well, because 99% of this community did not, in fact, were vegan their entire lives. Granted, you're technically born vegan, and then you're literally spoon-fed a little bit of meat and chicken and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as to why we are vegan, as long as we actually make a conscious decision.
I talk about that a lot. I don't care what your reasons for coming to this are, whether it be your health, whether it be the animals or the environment. They're all three related. So once I would love people to say, yes, ethical reasons, I am against this treatment of animals this way. But that may not be the reality. That may not be what sparked it for you to have that change. So that is very important that you brought that up. And, I think as a community as a whole, there are some who the vegan police will, you step out of line this much, and other vegans will be attacking you because you're not vegan enough, because you're not doing it the way they see it fit. And I think that's the wrong message to be sending out to people. I want to me, Meatless Mondays is one of those things that some vegans are like, no, that's ridiculous. You can't advocate for that. My stance is, if you want to start making changes in your life and you start with Meatless Mondays, that's great. That is a great first step. But again, it's a step in the right direction. But that must lead to Meatless Tuesdays, Meatless Wednesdays, Meatless days a week, right? Yes. And then dairy, whatever steps. So we didn't go vegan right out of the gate. We went vegetarian first, and then as we started our journey and I started sharing stuff for our journey, I started to realize the horrors that go on in the dairy industry. And then I realized how awful the egg industry is. And then we finally made a decision, like, how can we still, advocate to not eat these animals, but still, morally, we're still consuming dairy products on the other hand, which is as harsh, if not more harsh, than the meat industry ever could be. So, I don't ever judge anyone who is making steps towards that final goal, but to me, I would like to see that final goal to be vegan. But there's so many people out there that are just hard and hateful, and people who are trying, learning, making mistakes, but making progress towards that goal. I think we need to encourage and help those people make it successful. Otherwise, we're just, if we shut everyone down and cut everyone off, no one else is going to want to come to this movement.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. Whenever I don't know if you have these types of conversations often, but whenever I come across somebody that whose interest I piqued, if you will, I try to be as subtle and as understanding and as real with them as I humanly can, because, again, going back to that hypocritical factor, you once were in those shoes. You understand what it's like to be a little apprehensive, a little naive when it comes to this topic. So our best guidance comes from compassion. The same compassion that we seek for these animals is the one we need to have with our fellow man and women who are at least interested in having this conversation, this very interesting yet very difficult conversation. And so I'm totally with you. You catch more flies with, honey, as they say, but, you and I substituted with agave or maple syrup, you know what I'm saying? So, I'm totally with you on that.
I did an interview last year with Nikki from Love Always Sanctuary, and she said something, it was the first time I'd ever heard it. She said, most of us, like you said, we're technically born vegan, but then we're fed the marketing lies and the BS along the way. And then we're fed all of this belief that we have to have meat, we have to have dairy. But most of us weren't raised vegan. So she says, we all have blood on our hands. For some of us, it's just dry. So we have to keep that in mind that I used to be a hunter. I used to eat steaks and hamburgers, and I would drink a gallon of milk a day, probably from the time I was in junior high school through college. So it's hard for me to be like judgy and preachy and nasty to people for doing the things I used to do, and I thought and fought and would argue that those things were acceptable and important for me to survive. So we have to encourage people along the way to start making these changes. You said being very subtle. I love planting seeds with people, dropping little hints of information here and there, and then watching that grow, watching that fester, and then watching that blossom into someone making some serious choices in their life to greatly affect their health, the animals, and the environment by going vegan.
Yeah, it's I don't think there's much more satisfying topics to be discussed when you show up at work. For example, I happen to work for Uncle Sam. I work for Homeland Security, so I'm constantly surrounded by people bringing in their own lunches and whatnot. And so every time I show up with a delicious plant-based burger or a delicious vegan lasagna, they're like, "Holy crap, I thought you were vegan." And I'm like, "Buddy, this is vegan." And I'm like, "Are you serious? Can I get a bite out of that?"
Yes.
And it's always fun to have people look at your food and think you're a conventional eater as opposed to a vegan. It's always fun to be asked about this community, to be asked about this lifestyle, to be asked about what it actually means to be vegan, because people think it's just a matter of what you sit down and eat. People don't realize that, becoming a vegan and leading a vegan lifestyle is just much more than what you simply sit down and consume 3 times a day at least. It's about empathy. It's about raising awareness. It's about taking your mindset to another level.
Yeah.
So there are so many factors, Chris, that I think we need to consider when moving forward with a vegan lifestyle. And so if you and I, for example, we're pretty active, I would say, if we can keep spreading the message that the word vegan is more than just a lifestyle when it comes to food, then I think that people would be a lot more in tune with what we have to say. Because that's another thing. You and I are pretty vocal, and people see vocal vegans as the annoying people. Like, why are you always pushing a vegan agenda? And I'm like, no, man, I'm not pushing an agenda.
Nope.
The meat, dairy, and egg industry is pushing an agenda. Everywhere you look, north, south, east, or west, you have a fast food restaurant, right? Who's pushing whose agenda here? Let's be honest with ourselves. And so when we become vocal, like when we do these kind of Instagram lives, we do it because we know what's in our best interest. We know, and we also have a base for comparison. We've been on both sides of the coin as opposed to a carnivore who's never been a vegan. So I know what it's like. I can compare it. Most people can't. When we try to preach that message and try to help you, that's why we become the prototypical annoying vegan, always blasting their mouth, exploding if they don't actually say the word vegan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right in that the diet portion of a vegan lifestyle is literally just the tip of the iceberg. Animal products are found in everything from fashion to cosmetics to personal care items. And when I first went vegan, I never really thought about some of that stuff. So we went vegan for the animals. So there's also the misconception that we could talk about the difference of eating vegan versus a whole food plant-based diet. Vegans can still be very unhealthy. In the U.S., they do not use palm oil in Oreos. So technically, Oreos are vegan. And if you lived off of Oreos and Lay's potato chips, you're going to be very unhealthy. And to me, it's hard because I think that's a bad representation for vegans. If you are out there, if you're 350 pounds, trying to tell people that a vegan diet is healthy for you. I'm not saying everyone has to be, fit and trim and slim, but you should probably look healthier than you were when you were eating the typical Western diet. But
Right.
you start looking at all the products you buy. I use body wash from a brand named Everyman Jack. You can go buy it at Target. It's easy. Turn the bottle around, look for some of the symbols, the cruelty-free, vegan. What are the couple of others? You can do this stuff very easily. The other important part to this is it doesn't take anything away from you. If you are a football fan, you and I have had this conversation about the NFL. Your Seahawks are on a bye week this week.
Yeah.
You can still be a football fan. You can still be a truck driver. You can still be a NASCAR fan. You can, whatever it is that you enjoy, just stop consuming animals while you're doing it. It doesn't change who you are as, what your interests are in, unless you're into something cruel like bull riding or the rodeo. That's a different conversation. But, for me, it's really changed things. And, I appreciate you using your voice and being active. And, I try to be polite. I try to lead with compassion because I think that is so important to be able to reach people. If you come in at somebody yelling, screaming, I don't care what your message is. If you're yelling at me, I'm probably not really going to listen to what you have to say. So I try to keep that in mind when I'm trying to reach someone, when I'm trying to share my journey. The other day I was accused of being pushy with my message because I suggested that someone could stop eating turkey this Thanksgiving and be one less person being cruel to turkeys. And this conversation absolutely, and I still can't believe this conversation even went down the way it did. It escalated into one of the most ridiculous things I've ever read. And, the truth is, though, people don't like being told that they're cruel, but I used to support these industries. I used to hunt animals. I used to kill animals. I was cruel to animals. And for some reason, people don't like hearing the truth. It's offensive all of a sudden. It can be difficult from both sides, but I think the winning formula is to reach people with compassion, with knowledge and facts and experiences, and, being able to share that to encourage other people to change, even if they start making changes in their life. I think that's a plus. You just have to see where things go when they start making those changes and start feeling the positive impacts. Then they're like, what's next? And then they start limiting other things from their lives. What was so you said that, in your journey, you had a medical issue that really triggered your lifestyle change from a dietary standpoint. What was it for you that helped you get over that self-preservation aspect of your health and be more of an ethical vegan, looking at the animal cruelty?
Great question. So admittedly, I was living in I'll try to make this long story short. I was living in South Florida during 2009, late 2009. I had not been to the island for more than 6 years, and I kind of wanted to surprise everybody by booking a 4-day trip, what seemed to be at that time a 4-day trip. December 15th rolls around, I hop on my computer, I book a flight, and next thing I know, I'm on the island for Christmas Eve, right? But by then I had been experiencing sort of like a bilateral weakness on my shoulder, to the point where it was really tough for me to shampoo my hair, brush my teeth, button down my shirts. I was a restaurant manager at that time for Applebee's and Chili's. And it just so happens that I got progressively weaker. I spent Christmas with my mother. I drove to the west coast of the island to see my old man. And when I came back, I started dropping hot cups of coffee on my feet. I love to be barefoot at home. So one thing leads to another. And in what seemed to be the blink of an eye, and this is a very condensed version, I end up paralyzed from the neck down. And so, out of solidarity, I am an only child. And so mom hops on the computer, and aside from all the meds I was taking, I was having nurses swing by the home, administer IVs of very toxic chemicals, which created toxic migraines. It was absolute horrid conditions. And so we started, getting more in tune. At least she did, right? Because I'm mind you, I'm paralyzed from the neck down, and I'm her only kid, so she's doing whatever she can to help me.
Yeah.
So she starts researching, the old adage that says we are what we eat, right? And so she comes to the conclusion that we're going to start making some changes, and not leaving things to chance as opposed to grabbing the bull by the horns. And I hate saying that. I need to revamp my thinking. But anyway.
We all do that stuff. And I think it's important that, it's okay that you say those things, but that you acknowledge that you want to find a different way to say it.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's all part of how we were raised, the things we were taught, and sometimes it's hard to unlearn those things.
Yeah. So I'm going to get better at that. Anyway, she starts researching, and it just so happens that we started minimizing our intake of red meat, and slowly and surely I see progress being made as far as my health is concerned. Like, for example, I would get relapses every 2 months. Every 2 months, my body would shut down and go back to what it once was. And so slowly and surely, little less red meat, and then my progress went from 2 months to 4 months. And so we cut out red meat entirely, and then we also minimized poultry. Anything from like turkey and chicken, it was out the window. And so 4 months went to 6 months, and that's when she and I became a little more aware of the fact that, hey, whatever you're cooking in that kitchen is helping me. So let's do away with animal products, at least meat-based products, and we started becoming pescatarian, and then surely salmon and tilapia and all that stuff went out the window as well. So we became vegetarian. And to answer your question directly, it was during the vegetarian phase that social media started throwing vegan posts my way, because the algorithm, as soon as you like something, hey, you might like something else, so here's a vegan post, here's some interest in a vegan post. And so to answer your question again, it just so happens that I started running across slaughterhouse footage. I started running across, cows getting knives to the throat. I started running across, chickens with their dangling from their feet. I started running across, fish being massively sucked out of the ocean. And I'm thinking, I had that epiphany. The same epiphany you had with touching the cow, I had to experience virtually through this social media platform, which you and I both know is very, very powerful. And so I saw this footage, it resonated with me, it triggered something with me, and it was just a complete on and off switch, much like you had with touching that cow. And it was right then and there that I said, Mom, I think I've been living a lie for 32 years, and you and I both know the progress we're making by leaving animal and products and their byproducts off our plate. So let's try and sync this with this.
Yes.
And let's take it a step further. Let's eliminate animal products entirely. And so to this day, Chris, and this is a true story, I went from being paralyzed from the neck down for 4 months to being in complete remission for 9 years. And so the reason why I'm so vocal, much like you are, is because veganism literally changed my life. It literally saved my life. I was, a 26-year-old kid doing 2-a-days at the gym. And next thing you know, I bat an eyelash and I'm bedridden for close to 5 months, actually. And so for me, this is more than just a movement. This is a life savior. And so, again, that's why I don't really apologize for doing it for medical reasons. It saved my life. I owe so much to it. And being vocal and being an activist and going to Cubes of Truth is my way of paying life back for giving me the second chance and helping my fellow man and woman, change their lives if, I happen to reach them either in person or through this social platform. So that is a long answer to a very simple question, but I guess, we want to make the most out of this Instagram Live. So I do appreciate your question.
Absolutely. So we made the choice to stop consuming animals, and I didn't realize the impact that was immediately going to have on my health. So I have a condition called esophageal dysphagia. It is a condition where your throat will restrict, and it gets to the point where when it first started, it was like just uncomfortable, like something was stuck in your throat while you're eating. And then it progressively got worse after trips to the ER. I actually had a doctor. We were at Disney. My wife was 7 months pregnant. We were there with 5 of our kids. And she had to take me to the ER at like 4 a.m. while we were at Disney in Florida. And this ER doc says, I don't have any data behind this. He said, but everyone I see that has this, it's when they're eating meat. So, I wasn't smart enough then to say, okay, well, I'm going to stop eating meat. No. I kept doing it. And then the byproduct of one of the things that we did was going vegan. I haven't had this issue except for one other time. Since we stopped consuming animal products, I had this condition. We were at a family cookout. Our family who was not vegan, they grilled their stuff on the grill. Without cleaning the grill, I grilled our field roast sausages. I ate my sausage and immediately had another reaction. Since then, I make sure I'm careful that I don't eat that on a shared grill. I'm mindful of what we're cooking on and where it's being cooked at. So with that, it kept getting progressively worse. Taking trips to the ER, got to the point where I almost passed out, and inevitably it could have led to something very serious that they could not have recovered from. So not as nearly as dramatic as your transformation, but that was something that, even doctors telling me eating meat causes this. I had my esophagus stretched. I had taken medicine. I had taken all kinds of stuff and couldn't find an actual solution for it. But going vegan, the solution was, given to me.
So it's safe to say that to a certain extent, you also owe, or at least would like to thank this vegan lifestyle for keeping your health issues at bay.
Yes.
Is that a fair assessment?
100%. As I got older, that issue kept getting more and more severe every time, that reaction. It was almost like each time it got worse and worse and worse. And at some point, I think it probably would have got to a point where it could have been catastrophic.
Right.
My wife and I are thankful for that. There have been other health issues that I'm not shy about talking about it. So by the time I was 30, I was suffering with erectile dysfunction. As a 30-year-old man, that's not what you should be suffering with or struggling with. It got to the point where, mentally that's hard when, you kind of feel like your masculinity is being taken away from you. I never made the correlation to what was going on. We had actually made an appointment with a urologist, and he prescribed that little blue pill that so many men around the world take. I never filled that prescription. That was about a month before we went vegan. And I just felt like, man, I just really don't want to be on a pill for the rest of my damn life. And once we made that choice, within 2 weeks, the issue was gone. So if you watch documentaries like Forks Over Knives, they talk about this issue that anytime you're dealing with a circulatory disorder, anywhere in your body, it goes back to your overall heart health, your cardiovascular system. They talk about how erectile dysfunction in particular is what they call, again, one of those phrases, the canary in the coal mine. It is the first sign that you are on track for a major cardiac event. Now, without medication, I no longer have that issue, and it makes you feel alive and much more.
Yeah, no, I get it, manly, absolutely, yeah. I do appreciate you for sharing that. I can't imagine it's easy to talk about, but for all intents and purposes and transparency, I think it's. I'm sure someone in watching this video can resonate on that level. So I do appreciate that.
My wife hates when I share that, but I think it's important because without a doubt there are other men who are struggling with that, or wives with husbands that are struggling with that. That for the most part. Some studies I've read, nearly 95% of erectile dysfunction is directly related to clogged arteries. And that little blue pill, all it does, it dilates your arteries, which allows more blood flow. It doesn't actually fix the cardiovascular issues, but a whole food plant-based diet sure as the hell does. So I share it because I hope someone will wake up and absolutely take that to heart. And you know what's the worst you can do? Try it for 30 days. I can promise you, you'll see a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually the slogan they use for you to take that pill. Hey, try it for 30 days. If you don't want to, consult your physician or something. Yeah.
But they also say you better make sure you're healthy enough for that kind of activity, because they don't want to dilate your arteries and you have a heart attack, because then that's bad for their product. You know, their product, like lots of medicine, does not fix the underlying issues. They are made, you know, we could have a whole other discussion about big pharma. Most of those, lots of, you know, medications, they want you to keep taking that pill for the rest of your damn life. They don't want you to actually get better to where you don't need their medicine.
Right. Yeah. They want to, you know, create a client, not lose one.
Yeah.
That's, again, that is a great Instagram live, maybe perhaps in the future we can have. Anyway, you touched base on a couple of things of, admittedly, I wrote down a couple of questions I wanted to ask you. But you touched base on a little bit of that barbecue topic, Chris. I'm very interested in the social aspect, especially within your close-knit group of friends, your circle, if you will. How have you gotten any backlash from close friends and family by taking this humongous decision? Like, are family gatherings a little bit awkward? Do you not look forward to them as much as you used to because you're now a vegan and know you're going to have a very silly conversation with someone you love?
We have had we've had some pretty hard discussions. My dad and I, who are not on the same page with this, we've had some arguments about hunting and different things. However, I've shared recently that even he and I are starting to have better conversations about this. He'll come over to our house and he'll have something my wife will cook, and he'll be like, "That's really damn good. You brought a vegan lasagna." My wife makes a vegan lasagna that is just absolutely incredible, and he'll come over and have 3 or 4 pieces of it. He went camping with us, and we had Beyond Burgers, and he's like, "I can't believe that this is a plant-based burger." And so, you know, while we were camping, he said, "I can tell you right now," we had Beyond sausages as well while we were camping. He said, "I will never eat a normal hot dog again." So, you know, as a, you know, we have a pretty large family. Some of our family understands it, some of them don't. My wife's family in particular is very, very supportive. My mom and my stepdad, they have gone out of their way to make sure if we're coming over to, you know, I flat out told them, like, I'm not going to come over and consume something that I choose not to eat. And, you know, they go out of their way to make sure they cook a vegan meal for us. So does my dad and my stepmom at this point, which is good. Thanksgiving this year, we'll be at my in-laws again, and this will be our 3rd completely, not just for us, completely vegan Thanksgiving in the house. And I can't be more appreciative that they have started to do this and make changes in their lives as well. I could probably foresee my mother and father-in-law going vegan at some point. They keep seeing the health benefits. They keep, you know, my father-in-law loves the food that my wife cooks, my mother-in-law cooks, and I could absolutely see them going vegan. So things are getting better and better. So we're very fortunate in that aspect. I know lots of folks, though, are literally the only vegan at Thanksgiving, the only vegan at a barbecue. And, you know, I get how that can be very difficult and awkward. My mom once made a comment that you guys sure make it difficult when we get together. And for me, it's like, wow, that was hard to swallow, that, you know, my personal choice to stop harming animals is difficult for you to accept just because, you know, we've always been raised to look at animals a certain way, look at food a certain way. I love my mom, but she struggles with some serious health issues. She's actually going to a cardiologist on Tuesday, and I reminded her that Dr. Tim Williams, who is the president of the American Cardiologists Association, he said there are 2 types of cardiologists: vegans and ones who have not read the research. What he's talking about is how much better a whole food plant-based diet can be for you, and I try to encourage that for her. So she started crying and she broke down the other day. And she said, well, maybe that's just what we'll have to do. And, she was, well, maybe there's a pill I can take and we won't have to worry about it. And just that mentality that we got to get people to shift. What would it harm any of us to try a vegan diet for 30 days? You and I were raised the same way in that, meat and dairy were staples in our lives. That's what we were told we had to have to be big, strong men. And it turns out that's absolutely not true. It's hard to unlearn some of this stuff. We're still bombarded with so much marketing. Drive down the street, how many fast food locations do you see? How many fast food commercials do you hear? You talk about inner cities. You talk about big cities. What do they have? They don't have grocery stores, but man, they have a KFC, they have a Popeye's chicken, and they have a McDonald's over there. No wonder, vast majorities of our population are grossly overweight and unhealthy. It's incredible.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. A great answer. I'm with you. We're on the same page as far as that is concerned. Now, the word, as soon as it's uttered, masculinity. I think that you and I, both being men, we are, I guess, seen in the eyes of conventional society as, those burly men. We both sport the beard, and we all look, we are the prototypical men in today's day and age. And so I kind of want to talk about that toxic masculinity. As you probably know by now, and I've seen you share a couple of posts about it. Game Changers was literally a game changer when it comes to vegan documentaries, in the sense that, in my humble opinion, I don't know if you agree with me, but it was definitely geared more towards men as opposed to women. Unfortunately, they did seem a little bit marginalized during most of that documentary, but at the same time, I think that one of the focal points of that documentary was to, in fact, address this toxic masculinity, and who better to do that than Schwarzenegger himself, when he, in his own right, was labeling this as an entire marketing scheme to tailor to men in a very unique way, a very unique fashion, and which has worked, mind you, for the better part of the last 100 years. We've been told to shave a certain way. We've been told to grow beards. We've been told that, hunting is manly. You, of all people, would probably know this the best of anyone here. We're told that you need meat for strong, bodybuilding physiques. And we're told that, drink that gallon of milk a week so that your bones can be even, you've heard it all. And it is in fact part of a marketing scheme. So what is your opinion when it comes to this, the tie that we have between meat, eggs, and dairy consumption and actually being a man in today's day and age?
So there's a couple of things I'll address with that. So first off, Game Changers, I absolutely agree. It was geared more towards men. I would venture to say that women are typically more compassionate and more likely to go vegan. If you look at the vegan movement as a whole, you're talking almost 70 to 80% of them are women. So they really need to wake men up to realize that, it's not masculine to take the life of something that can't defend itself, which that is a quote from Damien Mander, who was actually featured in the Game Changers. Damien and I, we had come together, and we actually got to spend some time with Damien in Chicago back in March, and what an incredible individual. So those who don't know, Damien Mander is the founder of the International Anti-Poaching Foundation. He, like myself, grew up hunting, and he'll tell you he used to poach animals. Now he hunts poachers in Africa, defending the last wild rhino on Earth. Incredible individual. You brought up toxic masculinity. I'm going to be real honest here. I have a problem with that phrase, because when you ask someone what toxic masculinity is, they say it's sexist, it's homophobia, it's all kinds of things that, to me, don't define or describe a man. A man is not sexist. He's not racist. He's not homophobic. A man is someone who typically is seen as a defender defender of their family, defender of the vulnerable. And, women can defend their families. Women can defend the vulnerable just as much, but that's kind of our role. So you hear this term toxic masculinity, and I have a problem with it because there are some who believe that I should be ashamed for being a man. I should be ashamed for being a masculine man, and that's not true. I think each and every one of us has a uniqueness about us that should be absolutely celebrated, not destroyed. Now, traits like sexism, there's no place for that. Traits like speciesism, which we'll talk about that. There's no place for that anymore. Homophobia, there's no place for that kind of mentality. And to me, that does not describe a man. You're absolutely right. Society deems what they describe as a man or as feminine, or like you talked about how you should shave, what you should eat, the things you should do to be a man. To me, being a man is doing what makes you happy, doing what is important to you and your family, doing what is important to yourself as a person. And if that means you're driving a big pickup truck and you're toting guns around or whatever the case may be, then do that as long as you're taking care of yourself and your family and being kind to animals and being compassionate. If that means that you have made the choice in your life to be true to yourself and you want to be a gay man, you want to be feminine, you want to do those things, celebrate that. That's you. Be yourself. I think that is so important that so many people, I don't need you to be like me. I want you to be you, and I want to celebrate that and appreciate you as a friend because, man, life would be boring if we were all the same stuck-up assholes, right? So,
yeah, pretty much, yeah.
If we all conformed into the same shoe, and we all were the same, mindless person, it's very difficult. So I haven't really talked about that much because no one's really asked me about that. But when I hear that word toxic masculinity, it drives me crazy because if you ask someone to define it, they start talking about sexist. They start talking about racist. They talk about bigotry. They talk about these things that, in my opinion, doesn't define a man. It doesn't. Those aren't masculine traits. Those are traits of someone who is cowardly. Those are traits of someone who is not compassionate, is not kind, and those things don't line up with what I view the definition of a man.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I only admittedly use the phrase toxic masculinity because that's what most of the community refers to that. Mm-hmm. That's what it's known for, and I can definitely understand where you're coming from in the sense that it could represent so much more than just that pertains to veganism. So I'm completely with you now. The one thing that I kind of struggle with my fellow man, and when I say man, I literally mean my buddies, is how do I have this difficult conversation when they are, in fact, they love their guns and they love their meats and stuff like that. How do you get them to, and I guess I want to have your take, how do you get them to sit down and have this conversation without emasculating them?
Mm-hmm. So, myself having the experience of being a hunter, I can't go and call another hunter a murderer. I used to do those things. I have to show that, everyone has a different trigger point, what is going to help them see things differently. So probably the easiest thing that I have found to do with my friends that are these masculine, manly men is to have them over for a meal that doesn't look like it's vegan, but beyond sausage, beyond burgers. Have them over for a meal and just have a meal without telling them what this is. This is a plant-based sausage. Having them try these things. I think food is probably one of the easiest ways to. You don't even have to have the conversation, just have the meal. And when they're like, man, this is really good, and at the end of it, you're like, just so you know, that was vegan. I think that is a great way. You're absolutely right that you don't want to alienate these people. We have to be able to have conversations with farmers and hunters and ranchers. And sometimes those can be difficult. With your friends, I've lost some friends over this.
Yeah.
And that's been,
I remember, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I remember you had a very difficult upload to make. I think it was yesterday, maybe, about that difficult decision that you had to take as far as your friend is concerned. So yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by what you're about to say. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
so, I've lost friends who, absolutely close-minded, wholeheartedly disagree with the way, and his quote was, where you get your protein from. There's a point where I will try to have a conversation with anyone, no matter how big and masculine and meaty they may think they are. I'll have a conversation with anyone as long as they're open to an actual conversation. When they start belittling or being derogatory, at that point the conversation is over, and there's no sense in trying to drive that anymore because they're not going to listen. They've already had it in their minds, and I'll be the first to admit, at some point in my life, I probably made fun of vegan lifestyle, because that's what I thought we were supposed to do as men. That's the way I was raised. That's the way my dad was raised. That's the way his dad was raised. And, that tradition that passed through my family through hunting. I used to have a picture that I talk about. Well, it's 3 pictures, but it's a picture of myself and my dad with the deer that I killed, a picture of my dad and his dad with the deer they killed, and then a picture of my grandpa and my great-grandpa with the deer they killed. I used to think that was so cool to show, look, this is what men in my family do. This is how we take care of our families. This is how we provide. And, it's kind of eye-opening once you make this transition that, wow, not just the marketing, not just the stuff they're trying to sell you. Your family was teaching you something that, they're teaching you what they were taught. And sometimes that's difficult to digest. And you can make for some difficult conversations with friends and family. But I think it's important to, once you've made that choice, once you align your actions with your morals, because at the end of the day, I'll talk to some of my friends. I'll say, okay, look, I know you're a man. I know you're a big, strong guy. Would you take a cute little fuzzy chick the first day it's born and throw it in a macerator to grind it up? And they're like, well, hell no, that's cruel. Why the hell would you do that? And I let them know that, well, every day that you're purchasing eggs and supporting the egg industry, that's exactly what you're doing. And I think that's one way you can reach some people. Unfortunately, there are some men in particular, and there are women out there just the same, that has no effect on them. It's out of sight, out of mind. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to do it, and they're okay with that. I have not figured out how to overcome that yet. There's a point where there's no arguing with someone who's in that mindset that they literally don't care.
Yeah. Wow. It's just, there's just no better way to put it, honestly. Going back to what you said about your family, you subconsciously touched on tradition, right? You made the story about how your old man and his old man and things were done a certain way. And so I can imagine, especially even more so perhaps being a hunter, that in order to break that tradition, in order to be the catalyst that puts an end to what is now a cruel tradition, must have been a huge a burden to carry on your shoulders and be that one chink in the chain, if you will. Chris, he became vegan, he doesn't hunt anymore. I mean, what are we going to do? And now that he's a vegan, he's probably going to start a new tradition and not kills animals. And so his kids are not going to be hunters. And so, your old man is probably going to be the last hunter in your family because of one decision. Have you thought about that? I mean, has that resonated? Has it actually hit home? The fact that you took this decision upon your hands and you finally put 2 and 2 together and said, you know what? It doesn't matter what generations of my family did. It all starts, it stops here, and it stops with me, and it stops today. So that's like mind blowing. I mean, I don't think, I don't know if you've actually hit home yet, but that's actually in the bigger spectrum of things. That's what I see happening as you speak. Like a tradition of cruelty ends with just making one choice to remove animals. That's amazing, man.
I do think about that, and I love sharing. So we have 7 kids total. My wife and I, we are a blended family. So we have hers, mine, and ours. I had 4 daughters from a previous marriage. My wife had 2 sons from a previous marriage, and those 2 are my bonus kids. But I also have a biological son that we have together, and I love that this is a tradition that will not continue on with me. I actually have something sitting back here that I keep out in the garage. So this is kind of like my workspace, right? I come out here and work on stuff, and we're fairly handy and fix things ourselves. But I found this envelope when we were going through some things. This was last year sometime. My wife found it. It's very yellowed. You can see on it that it's old and dated. And as soon as I saw the envelope, I knew exactly what this was. So this is the Outdoor Skills Coordinator, Division of Wildlife in the state of Ohio. I knew that it had my name and address on it from when I was a kid. This is my Ohio Hunter Safety Education Program certificate. This certificate was done on November 14th, 1990. I remember where I took this class. I took it with my older brother. After we completed this course, that meant we could go out in the woods with our dad, carry our own firearm, and kill an animal ourselves. Hunting in my family was so important, and is still so important. I've kept this for almost 40 years. 30 years, sorry. Math's not really my strong suit. No, I'm kidding. I've kept this for almost 30 years. That's how important it was to my family that I completed this course and that I kept this. So this is one of those things, when I found it, I wasn't going to throw it away, because this is a tool to show people that change is possible. Change is absolutely not only possible, it's important for us all to survive, that we start looking at things differently, holistically. I love the idea that I'm the last man in my family that will be a hunter. I'm going to teach my children differently. And for my son, my 4-year-old, my wife will take him to the grocery store and he'll ask for something. He'll be like, Mom, is that vegan? And if she says no, he doesn't even care. He knows already at 4 that she's not going to buy that product. And if it is vegan, he'll be like, can I have that? Like most kids do. And to me, it's mind-blowing to know that he's never had meat because he was young enough that he had not started eating meat yet. He did have dairy at a very young age, but so he's been a vegetarian almost his entire life and a vegan almost his entire life. We will celebrate our 2-year vegan anniversary January 13th, and to me, that's more exciting than my birthday that's coming up here in the end of November.
Nice. I love it, man. It's just, I can't imagine how cool it is now, probably, to know that your kids moving forward will lead a vegan lifestyle for the rest of their existence. I mean, and it's just starting. I mean, I'm not a father myself, so I don't have, the amount of kids that you have, but I can only imagine how cool it's going to be for you to be able to have a front row seat to a seemingly healthy, vivacious, and just cool upbringing that you're going to give these kids. And that's perhaps another topic to discuss, like, parenting and knowing, once you know better, you do better. And, if you were to get really drastic with it, you could, make an argument that, on some level, it's kind of abusive to a child to feed them meat, eggs, and dairy after knowing what its negative side effects on that child can be. But that's kind of like really out there. I don't want to label anyone watching this video as as child abuse, but an argument could be made for that after you come to the conclusion that this is in fact very damaging to these children. And so I applaud you for not only making this decision yourself, but doing better as soon as you know better, because I think that's what it all comes down to doing better as soon as you know better. So I applaud you for that.
Hey, just so you're on the same page, I just got a warning that we have 24 seconds remaining for this live feed.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Okay.
Holy crap, that was quick.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Let's get together next week then.
Yes, absolutely. I will get this shared back out to YouTube for everyone who missed part of this. And thank you very much for your time tonight.